welcome to Main Street Matters by Heart on Main Street, the podcast that knows in order to grow your business, you often have to grow yourself. I'm your host, Patrick Keiser, and today is a very special episode. I got the chance to sit down with the founder and owner of Whizbang Retail Training, Bob Negen. I have such incredible respect for Bob and the business that he's built. Not only is he a retailer by trade that has grown an incredibly successful business and then has launched another business teaching other retailers how to be successful business owners themselves. He was really one of the first supporters of Heart on Main Street, allowing us to have a presence at one of his conferences, being one of our first webinar guests. He has been such a supporter of our organization, and again, I have such incredible respect for him. So we sat down to talk really about all things Whizbang and Bob Negen, talking about his history, how he started his business, how he grew his business, and then how he grew a secondary business based off of the experiences that he learned as a retailer. It was a fantastic conversation. I really learned a lot about him, about what it takes to grow your own business and be successful in that. So I hope you all enjoy, and without further ado, here's my conversation with Bob Negen. All right, I am here with Bob Negen, the founder of Whizbang Retail Training. Bob, thank you so much for joining.
Well, Patrick, I am honored.
I am honored that you're on. I have a fantastic appreciation of everything that you've done for retailers in the retail community. I love what you've built, and really wanted to talk to you today about how you've built not only the Whizbang Retail, but your own retail business, and
Sure.
really kind of how you've developed that. As I know,
Great.
a lot of retailers, they're learning how to build the business, and they're learning how to be successful and what those turning points are. So kind of want to start a little bit at the beginning. When I've heard you talk and speak, you've talked a lot about the Mackinaw Kite Company.
Yeah.
Was that your first endeavor into retail? Did you own anything before
Well,
that? Or-
no. So,
Yeah.
so in college, I sold shoes for one semester.
Okay.
Roots shoes. They were the old negative heel hippie shoes.
Okay.
But that was the extent of it. It really had nothing to do. I mean, I was a salesperson,
Yeah.
right? In a dead mall. I worked for a friend. But then when I started to fly kites when I was a senior in college, and I just loved everything about it. I was an enthusiast.
Yeah.
And I graduated from college. I didn't want to get a real job. I love flying kites. So, in my underdeveloped 23-year-old brain, it made perfect sense to open a kite store. How hard can it be to run a retail store, right?
You have a
So,
passion for it. You'll love
but
doing it.
sure, it was the field of dreams. Build it, they will come. Of course, you and all your listeners know, build it, and they may or may not come. So I went up to Mackinaw City, Michigan. Here's Michigan for those of you who are watching this as a video. And Mackinaw City is at the tip of the mitt, as we say in Michigan. It's at the northern terminus of the lower peninsula of Michigan. It's a tourist area, and I opened the Mackinaw Kite Company. I had little under $3,000 in cash. I had no retail experience. We were a specialty kite store, one of the world's first specialty kite stores. So, Patrick, if you look at the statistical probability that the Mackinaw Kite Company would still be here, almost 45 years later, my brother Steve owns it now. The probability is literally less than 1%. But Steve and I were young, and we were willing to be poor. And most importantly, we were willing to try stuff out. I mean, we hustled, and we just did what we could. The first season, because it was a seasonal store, first season we did $17,000.
Okay.
And the second season we did $22,000.
Growth.
But I'm telling you, and from then we started to get some traction. We started to
Okay.
understand what we were doing. And then when I sold it to my brother Steve in 1999, after 19 years, we were a multi-million dollar, multi-stain business. We learned how to sell yo-yos and We sold a lot of yo-yos, but most importantly, I think to your listeners, to their value is our business work. The thing that I see, and I know you see, is that most independent brick and mortar retailers get into business because they have a passion for
Yep.
their hobby. The fashionista wants to open a women's clothing store. The person who has good taste opens a home accessories store. The bike rider opens a bike store. But the thing to understand is that uh, it takes skills. And brother Steve and I did a really, really nice job of giving our customers a great experience, but we weren't really skilled, right? All of the back of the house stuff that really makes a difference that you have to know now to be successful, we didn't have. And then about year 15, I met my wife, Susan, who you know, who's now my partner at Whizbang Training, and she was a department store executive. So she worked for Macy's and Lord and Taylor and Bloomingdale's, and they actually trained her how to do those things. I remember looking at her and go, somebody taught her how to do this.
We've never we're figuring it out as we go.
We were figuring, and that's what most people are doing.
Yeah.
Most people are, I mean, you got the energy, but if you don't have the skills and it doesn't work the way it's supposed to work, it really starts to grind on you. And so this is why it made such a difference to me and Steve. It wasn't like she came in and saved us. We had a good business. We grew every year. We were profitable most years, but it wasn't right. There was a lot of stress. We Things like being overstocked because we didn't know what open to buy
Okay.
was.
Yeah.
Our merchandise mix, what we would do is Steve and I would go to the shows, Astra, the Kite Trade Association, the New York Toy Fair, and we'd walk around. And if we saw something that we thought was going to be hot, we would buy a boatload of them. Right? We didn't know what we were doing. We were
What
just
you
going,
like? Yeah.
but that's like we bought what we liked, not what our customers were buying. And
Mm.
so Susan brought sort of that back of the house skills to our front of the house, instincts. And then the Mackinaw Kite Company really started to go. And it was really, really gratifying to not only see it all happening, but so many independent retailers I know for me, one of my core values is mastery. If I'm going to do something, I want to be good at it, right?
Yeah.
I want to work at it. I want to succeed at it. I want to learn about it. And I really felt like we had mastered what this game of independent retail was. And so then in 99, my brother Steve came to me and said, hey, you want to sell your share of the company? And I was already sort of thinking about doing this because I knew there was no reason for other people to go through all of the pain that we
Okay.
went through,
Yeah.
right? It was like, hey, I mean, another one of my core values is service. And, it was like, people need to know this stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And when Steve came to, we were going to Mackinaw City. It's a 4-hour drive from our store in Grand Haven, and he handed me an envelope. We were going to Mackinaw City for Labor Day weekend, and it was an offer. And we weren't even an hour out of town, and I looked at Susan and I said, "I'm going to do it." And she said, "Bob, you spent 19 years building this thing. It's going to take you an hour to make this decision." And I was like, "Yes, because people need this and we've got this and we can figure out this business, meaning the how do you sell your retail knowledge
Right.
business." And so that's what we did. And so for since 99, so for almost 26 years now, we work with independent retailers to
Yeah.
give them the chops they need to be successful.
And I mean, and experts in that field. And I mean, it is all those experiences and going through the first 15 years of figuring it out that I'm
Yeah.
sure really built that in. What were, during that period before, I know Susan came in and kind of instituted a lot of
Yeah.
foundations for you. What were a lot of those challenges? I mean, you were still successful, but what were a
Yes.
lot of the challenges that you saw and that you struggled with, but, in those $17,000 and
Yeah.
$22,000 years?
Well, in the beginning, the challenge was to get people into the store. So we had a terrible location. It was around the corner. Mackinaw City's got a three-block main street. We were around the corner. It had been empty for 2 years. Go ahead.
Well, real quick, why Mackinaw City? It is the most northern point. I mean, it's a tourist vacation town.
Well,
I know that there's a boat race from Chicago up there.
that's
My
right.
friends
And Mackinac
participation,
Island is
but
there. Yes.
why Mackinac?
Okay. So the story is. I had a girlfriend, not Susan, before Susan, a girlfriend had a cottage in Harbor Springs, which is, another very, very affluent resort town in northern
Okay,
Michigan. And we went during college. A bunch of us, went up in the fall to stay at her cottage. We called it adult camp. Why we called it adult camp? Because we did not act like adults at all, but we
it's
went
not
out
good.
into this field to fly. I had a Peter Powell stunt kite. It was at a 100-foot tail, and you steered it through the sky. And I was having so much fun. And we stopped and we asked a farmer if we could fly in his field, and he said sure. And he was having a garage sale at the time, and he had a guy in a gorilla suit standing on this road trying to get people to come in. Well, everybody stopped, but not because of the gorilla suit, because they stopped to watch our kites.
Okay,
And so, I mean, and it sort of struck me. It's like, oh, this is interesting. And on the way home, I looked at Sharon and I said, Sharon, I should open a kite store up here. And she said, you should. I mean, this is the
yeah,
quality of my decision making, Patrick.
very important. Yeah, hey, but
Yeah, so
it
so
laid the path for a lot of
it,
success.
it did. So I went to Petoskey and I didn't know how to look for a location. I guess I just expected a building to fall down on me. And it didn't fall down on me. So I sort of gave up on my dreams. My sister got married. I was hanging out with a good friend of mine who shot her wedding. And he said, Bob, I'm going to open a photo gallery in Mackinaw City. And I looked at the plans for this little mini mall where he was going to put his Gitchy Coast Gallery, and I looked at it and I said, "That's where I'm going to have my kite store," and the rest is
There we
history.
go. Okay.
There we are.
So again, a challenge of getting people there, getting people into the door. What else?
So but then this becomes interesting too. So we were around the corner. So then that's when we learned that we fly them, they buy them. So then we started to fly kites. Like we would fly kites in the beginning, we would actually literally tie a kite off the front of our store, and there were windsocks all along the line. So people would come in the ferry, they'd see all these windsocks, and their eyes would take them straight to our
Yeah.
sign, and then they would come in. And so then we started buying bigger and better kites. We hired kite flyers who would go out and put on shows. And that's how it really started. Mackinaw City was really known for, if you came into town, you automatically looked up because our goal was to have a sky filled with fantastic kites.
Wow.
Because when
No.
that happened, we were selling.
And it's like some viral marketing that you would get
No, it
going.
was
And
entirely viral. So, Patrick, think about this. So, let's just use the number $1,000. So, because it's a nice round number, if the baseline was $1,000, and the on the first day that the wind would blow steady, we would do 1,500. If the wind blew steady 2 days in a row, that second day would be 2,500. The third day would be 3,500. And that's kind of where it would cap
yeah,
out. But I mean, we lived and died by wind.
the
After
win.
a while, we had a customer base, so we weren't as dependent on it. But that's how we built it. And then
Wow.
the next sort of, to your question, the next thing. So we started to grow. We got traffic. The next thing we needed to do was hire people. We didn't know how to manage people. And when I talk to retailers, their number one frustration is how do you build a
It's
team?
still,
So
yeah.
I had to learn how to build a team. And then we realized that we weren't converting like we should, even though we had a lot of passion. And then we learned how to sell. And so, one of the things that I learned and that we teach, and that any of your listeners probably know to be true is as you grow your business, the skills you don't have come up and bite you on the
Mm.
backside. And then that becomes an opportunity. You can say, okay, I don't know how to do this thing. I better learn how to do this thing or it's going to hold me back. So every single thing. That's why in our retail mastery system, there's 11 modules. Every module points to one of those skills that I didn't know.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
I learned, and then it solved a bunch of problems. So that was a long answer to your short question. I hope you
No,
don't
but
mind.
yeah, I mean, but the experience that you've had, I think, is it's a not unique one to retailers. That not having the retail experience, having to figure it out, maybe being in an area that is there's a fluctuating traffic there, and how do I manage my buying? How do I manage traffic? How do I get people inside my door? And learning that all along the way without necessarily having that experience and someone to guide you through those experiences.
Well, your question is, or your comment is very interesting because I created a model that's called the retailer's journey.
Yeah.
And the first part of the retailer's journey is when you're a shopkeeper. And that's Bob Negen at the Mackinaw Kite Company. That's when you don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
unconscious incompetence. Oh, I love bikes. I'm going to have the best bicycle store. Oh, I love to cook. A kitchenware store is going to be so awesome. I love kites. And the shopkeeper phase of your retailer's journey is filled with stress. It's filled with lack. It's filled with, you don't know what you don't know. And it's real frustrating. Susan's father has a great quote. He said, I'm sorry. It said, my computer is wobbling here
Right.
in the
Windy
wind.
day, great day for kite.
It's a
Yeah.
windy day, but he has a great quote. He says, stress is knowing what to do, but not knowing how to do it.
Okay.
And so that shopkeeper's part of the journey is, it's really stressful. You don't have enough money. You don't have enough time. You don't have enough skills. You don't have enough people. You just don't have enough. And then someplace, for me, it was year two, and I've polled a lot of people, and year two seems to be the common term where you have that oh shit moment. Now you
Sure.
can
Yeah.
buy, and that's when you go. That's when I went, oh no, I don't know what I'm doing, and if I don't get serious about getting past my passion for my product, kites, and get real serious and passionate about becoming a better business
Business.
person, this thing's not going to make it. And I call it the danger zone. And when a retailer gets to the danger zone, and it could be year two, it could be year five, but there's a choice. And that choice is you can start to blame everybody, which you see a lot of, I see a lot of.
Sure.
It's the problems, the politicians, the problems, the Chamber of Commerce, the problems their vendors aren't coming up with new lines. It's everybody's
Yeah.
problem but
Right.
their own. And so then that victimhood becomes, that's the path to failure. I mean, if you get on that path and you don't pull yourself out of that mentality, you can hang on, but
There's no introspection at that point, right? You're not
there's no
looking at how do I
introspection.
get better.
There's
And
blame.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting you mentioned that 2 year because that is I've seen national statistics that's it's about a third of businesses don't make it past that 2 year point.
Yes.
And so it is that kind of oh shit moment where I don't know how to run my business. And a third of businesses are there and they go out of business within that period.
Well, and so then the other part of it, no, you're absolutely correct. Thank you for sharing that. But then the second group of people, and fortunately I put myself in this group, is you go, okay, wait a second. I don't know what I don't know, but I'm going to figure this out.
Mhm.
And that, you start to learn, you go to seminars, and when I started, there was no real investment to make. But now, you can invest in our retail. I mean, there's tons of experts. Our Retail Brilliance
Yeah,
platform is just
it's
filled with
great.
education for
Yeah,
retailers. That's
yeah.
why we did it. But then those people, the people who say, wait a second, I have a problem. This is an opportunity for me to learn a new skill. Then they start to grow. They get better. They get more confident, which is really important. And they get to the second phase, which is called Retail Pro. And when you get to a retail pro, all of a sudden there is enough. You do have enough skills. You are generating enough cash and profits. You do know how to do the things. You know how to manage a team. You know how to build a culture. You know how to market your business. And when you get to that place, especially after the stress that, of getting there, is hallelujah, thank you, And that's why, and going back to the experience with Susan, we were getting there, but it was taking us a long time. Susan accelerated the process. And, that feeling of, "Whew, I got this," is such a liberating feeling.
Yeah. And so I know, Susan coming on board was one of those pivotal moments. Were there others, or what were the others along the way where you're saying like, all right, we're going to make a go of this. This is going to be a sustainable thing for us.
Well, so it wasn't so there's a couple of things.
Yeah.
There was never really moments where we went, this is going to be a sustainable thing for us, because before year two, brother Steve and I looked at each other and says, we're going to do this, right? So there
Yeah.
was the decision. And so we just kept sticking it out. And over that course of those 19 years that we had it, we almost went broke twice. But
Yeah.
each time we almost went broke, there was always the, how are we going to get out of this?
Yeah.
And now, for your listeners, there's probably some of your listeners who are feeling that way. Like, I'm
Mhm.
overwhelmed. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. I feel like I'm in a hole that's so deep I can't get out of it. Here's the mantra. Here is the mantra that Steve and I had, is you're never going to be successful in business if you're not in business. So that every day, by God, we're going to stay open. And every day they didn't come close us down, or every day we were able to pay a vendor or something. Every day that we stayed in business meant that we were
You're in business.
closer to being successful in business. And both times we pulled ourselves out.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
Yeah.
that was helpful.
Yeah, obviously, right, yeah. It's helpful to be in business, it can continue growing through that, but yeah, having
Yeah.
that mindset that, this
Yes.
is we're just gonna keep plugging, and you gotta figure out what you need to do to grow that. When did you start to kind of shifting towards,
Yeah.
with
Sure.
Whizbang, when did it start to be you realizing that I have things to offer to others, and
Sure.
that I've gone through all of this and my peers can learn from me.
So I remember it vividly, Patrick. So the Kite Trade Association, I was a founding member, because I was one of
Yep,
the Mackinaw Kite Company was one of the first specialty kite stores in the world. Not the first, but,
very cool.
early
Yeah,
days, we were. And it was at the Kite Trade Association, and it was a rowdy bunch. We, a lot of time spent in the bar after the show and things like that. And I was standing at the bar, but my chair was swiveled away from the bar because I was, I mean, it was like a party.
yeah,
Everybody's talking to each other. And I remember looking up, and everybody is listening to me. And it was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. But then I realized that they were listening to me because I knew what I was talking about. The answers that they were looking for, I was sharing with them. And that's not being cocky. I mean, it was just, I was just sharing. People are saying, what are you doing about this? And I would share, and they were, oh, that makes sense. And, we were farther along than almost everybody else in the trade. And so that was the moment that I went, okay, not only is this viable, but this is valuable.
yeah.
And so that's, and originally I thought I didn't want to be in the training business. But I wanted to help retailers. So I thought I would find a training company to work for.
Okay.
And I did find a training company to work for, but and they were going to build me a retail training business in their business. But what I found, Patrick, and most of your listeners could probably relate to this, I don't want to work for anybody else. So, I
Especially
mean,
after, 19
I did
years of
like
your
three
own owner.
seminars for them. I was like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So what were the steps of building Whizbang? Like, how did you be? You started off with the idea, the concept that it didn't work with that company. So how are we?
So, it was exactly like building a retail business. So, you buy, if let's just use the example of a kitchenware store, right? Kitchenware store, they know the merchandise that they can figure out a product because they love to cook, right? So,
Yeah.
but for us, we had a product and it was all of our experience in retail. But we didn't know this information business. So the first thing we did was we made a little seminar series called the Retail Success Series. And we did it for people in our hometown. And I started speaking at Chamber of Commerce meetings, and we built the mining diamonds marketing kit that was in a 3-ring binder that
Yeah.
and we were growing it. But then, and I think this is very valuable to your listeners, the first sort of big leap we took was when we invested and went to Randy Gage's Speakers Institute in 2005. And it took all of our money. I mean, it was the biggest gulp you could ever possibly imagine, but we did it. And he really showed us sort of how to run a business like this,
Okay.
how to write copy, how to provide value, how to speak, how to market your speaking services. So that was a big leap. And then a few years after that, somebody that we met at Randy Gage's Speakers Institute, we hired a gentleman, Paul Lemberg. And at the time, for a year of consulting, at the time, we paid him 10% of our annual sales in
Wow.
his fee. But that relationship, that weekly call, led to the formation or the creation of the Retail Mastery System. The Retail Success Summit was sort of bundled with that. So the point there was how we learned some on our own, but mostly we learned by saying, okay, this is the thing we don't know. Who knows it? Who not how, as Dan
Yeah.
Sullivan talks about it. Who knows how to do what we're trying to do, and then paying them for it, right?
Yeah.
And now a problem that I see people making is you can get so much free information on the internet. And free is good, but if you really want to accelerate, money loves speed.
Yep.
Money loves speed. And if you want to accelerate your success, pay for it, get the right information in the right order, in the right, and then it's going to be a positive investment, not a cost.
And the free out there, a lot of it's introductory, right? It's
Yeah.
the base
Yeah.
level. It is, good, great for a foundation. But to really grow your business, I mean, it's an investment in your knowledge. And it sounds like what you made was that you invested in your knowledge of how to grow a business. Retailers invest in your knowledge of how to run your business.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
What were throughout that? What was a point where you really saw like whiz bang, like this is a pivot point, a growth point that you're like, all
Yeah.
right, we're taking off.
Yeah. 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 Well, there were two times. I mean, I'm a good speaker. You've
You're a great
seen me
speaker. Yeah.
speak, and that comes natural. My dad's a preacher. I mean, so if you are articulate and you know your stuff and you can put together a basic outline and you have stories, this is
Yeah.
important too.
Okay.
I mean, I had stories, right? I mean,
You had
I
19 years worth of stories. Yeah.
but by the time I was done with my hour and a half, they were like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about,
Yeah.
right? Um, but I spoke at Sherry Rieger's Gift Basket Connection,
Okay.
right? It's when Gift Basket
Gift
was
baskets.
that
Yeah. Right.
industry was still a big thing, and I sold $3,000 worth of. In those days, they were called the whole enchilada. It was the mining diamonds marketing kit and the super staff development kit, right? And it was like that was the moment. It was like it was proof.
Yeah.
It was proof. And that retail success series, it was proof. People heard it and they believed it and they did something with it and they saw the results from it. And that's why we're here, right?
Yeah.
That's why you're doing what you do. That's why all the good independent retailers I know, there's this thing called the heart of service. And if you have a heart of service and love your money, I mean, love your customers, the money will follow. And that's why we do a lot of free stuff. That's why you do a lot of free
Yep.
stuff. To your point, it's introductory. You sample, you sell. You
Right.
come to one of our webinars, we try to give you enough value that you go, okay, I want
Want more.
more. I
Exactly.
want more.
And I love that, really it's been a combination of what you're passionate about, where your skills are, and really being able to combine that into a continual growth. And I know you're a person that loves to learn more. What have you learned, or what are kind of some concepts that you've really brought in to yourself through Whizbang, and that's really become a part of your mantra and who you are?
Yes. One of the primary one of the concepts that I developed, that we teach, that I circle around. There's this idea you got to keep saying it, keep saying it. And finally, one day, somebody go, "Oh, that makes sense."
Got it.
Is WWMCW? What would my customer want? And um, you can't out Amazon. You can't out Walmart. But Amazon and Walmart together can't out you. So if you come at the market with a customer focused philosophy and you show up as your best self, the right people are going to find you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And
So
I love when you talk about that, because it is they can't do the same things that an independent retailer does. They don't know your customer like you do.
and they can't give that kind of experience. When you look at the big brands online, brick and mortar, they can't or they won't. You go into, I mean, Best Buy of all the big box stores probably has the best customer experience, but they're not going to have the number. They're just, it's still a big box store.
Yep.
What people want when they come into an independent store, independent retailer, is they want that experience. They want knowledgeable people. They want people who care. They want people who are actively demonstrating this heart of service. And this is, Patrick, you know this. I think that your listeners know this, but your number one, and actually your only unassailable competitive advantage, is to be yourself. To that quote about Walmart and
Yep.
Amazon. So just be good, be your best self, focus on your customers. And if you're skilled, it all starts, I mean, it comes together.
What would my customers want? And
What would my
really,
customers want?
yeah, and if you can make your business around that and understand, what that ideal customer, what they're looking for, and cater yourself towards that. Again, the bigger stores can't do that. They're too blanket. There's too much bureaucracy of any change. You can be nimble. You can figure out what your customers want. And
You are hitting it on the nose. And it really leads you down sort of this beautiful rabbit hole. So, for instance, what does your customers want? Your customers want an amazing in store experience. How do you develop an amazing, how do you develop and deliver? Well, you hire the right people, you train them constantly, you educate them about, how you think, what you do, you train them on what you sell, you train them how to sell, all of these things. You can say and even think WWMCW, but until it becomes action, until you develop that training program, until you get rid of the people who are standing behind the register and not greeting your people, until you bring in people and train them, until you create that, if you truly believe WWMCW, it immediately degenerates into hard work, doing the work necessary to give your customers that experience.
I love that it permeates throughout the entire business.
The whole thing.
The people that you employ, it is the products that you bring in, the events that you have, it is the entire business in that.
It
Okay.
is everything that you just mentioned and everything else.
Yeah.
Everything that touches the customer. And everything in the back of the house affects what goes on in the front of the house, right? So if you don't know how to order skillfully and you run out of best sellers, it affects the customer experience. So this is the thing that I love about business and I love about independent retail in particular is it's so holistic, right? Nothing happens in a vacuum.
No.
Everything affects everything else. And when you approach it that way and do the right work, it starts to happen.
At the most recent summit that you all had, I know there was
Uh,
a speaker that talked about loving your customer. Can you kind
yeah.
of talk to us about that and really how that touched you and really what that means to show love for your customers?
Sure. So that was Ari Weinswag, and Ari's spoken at the summit. I don't know. This is his third or fourth time, and he's the co-founder of the Zingerman's family of businesses in Ann Arbor, and I think they're about $100 million a year business right now, and they built it through culture. And we love Ari, and we're friends with Ari, and like I said, he's always one of our favorites. So I read one of his newsletters, his weekly newsletters. You can go to zingermans.com and subscribe. And it was about customer love. It was like perfect because that's the theme. Ta-da! Ari, it's virtual. Come on down. So he did, but he explains it a little differently than us, but it is exactly the same. Because they're in the food business, they have a restaurant, a farm, they have a couple of restaurants, they have the deli, they sell food. He uses the example of recipes. We talk about standards when we talk about training and teaching and educating. Look, this is the way we do things. If things are done this way every time, our customers are going to get a great experience, they're going to get a consistent experience. It's going to be great. He calls it recipes. And the question that I asked him was, okay, you don't just allow your line cooks to say, oh, I feel like adding a whole lot more paprika. I mean, they don't get to say, oh, I got an order for a corned beef sandwich. I think I'm going to make a pastrami on rye. And his point was very well taken. He said, yes, you have to give them the recipe, but you also have to allow them to think for themselves. you know Ingredients change. You look at food, it's different. It has different flavors at different times of the year. In the summer, it's all farm fresh vegetables. In the winter and fall, there's more root vegetables. So the object is to educate your people on how things should be done, and then give them the opportunity and the leeway to think. And if they don't do it correctly, and I think this is so incredibly important, it's an opportunity to coach. And and your listeners know, people love to be heard, people love to be appreciated. And that's what leadership is all about: listening, letting your team members help steer the ship. A big mistake that I see people make, and it's made often, is they think because they're the owner, they're responsible for finding the right answer to something.
Sure. Oh,
And they're not. They're or no, they're responsible for finding it, not necessarily coming up with it. They don't have to determine it. They don't have to think about it and say, this is the decision. They have to just, my advice always is, let your team help you build your business. So I created a concept called ADD, and it's ask, discuss, decide. So anytime you have an opportunity or a problem, rather than retreating into your own mind and trying to find an answer that you're going to tell people
yeah.
that's how they're going to do things, say, hey, this is what I think. What do you think? And when you do that, your team members start to think about your business for you and with you, and you develop a collaborative culture. And that's also how you build the kind of business. Those people will get their friends to come work for you. So recruiting is no longer an issue. Those people will step up if something happens to you. Those people will be good enough and will love it when you leave and go on vacation. So when you build that kind of culture, WWMCW just kind of takes care of itself because they're taking care of your customers because they know how you feel and they're just really kind of an extension of you, plus adding their own little
Yeah.
spice to it.
Yeah, yeah, able to kind of, work off that recipe, and
Yeah, that's
I
right.
as you're talking, I was almost thinking kind of an image of, bowling with the bumpers up, and you set the guardrails there, but you can operate
Perfect.
inside of that, and here's kind of where we wanna be, and here's where we're operating, but, play within that and do your own thing inside there, and know that, yeah, if you go outside, we need to adjust, but,
Right.
you have that.
That's the perfect metaphor. That's perfect, Patrick.
Well, thank you. That's
Yeah.
you gave me the material for it,
All right. There you
But,
go.
good, yeah, and I love, the ask, decide, and because it is really you need the input from your team. You need their understanding, and that gets them to buy in. Without their buy-in, then it's just, I'm working a job.
Right.
I'm doing something. I'm being told what to do. I show up when I show up, but really having some skin in the game and feeling like you were involved in this, that's going to be what really leads to that better culture. And when you make a place that people want to work, and then people will want to come shop.
You are precisely correct. You are precisely correct.
Well, Bob, any for I guess first, we talked about Whizbang Retail Training, but
Uh-huh.
where can people find you and your work and learn more about
Sure.
your company?
Yeah, so I'll sort of give you a rundown, free, paid, all those things. So if you go to whizbangtraining.com, there's an H in Whizbang. You can sign up for our, be on our list. And if you're on the list, every Wednesday you'll get a free tip of the week, and every Sunday you'll get one of my video blogs, Real Retail TV. And right now I think there's probably 100 episodes of Real Retail TV on the website. So, if one of your listeners is going, man, I really need some ideas and inspirations, you can just sit there and binge watch Bob. You'll be tired of me before too long, but
You
you
have
know, but
incredible materials.
thank you, thank you. But that's all free. But then our sort of our flagship products and programs is the Retail Mastery System, and that is, alluded to it earlier. That's where Susan and I dumped everything we knew about the fundamentals of retail into, there's like 25 hours of video. There's 11 modules. That's our flagship product. And I can't tell you how many we sold thousands and
Yeah.
thousands and thousands of them through the years. But, I can't tell you how gratifying it is to hear people say that was the thing that changed it all. That I went from being a person who was trying, struggling, Bob Negen, who was a shopkeeper, and that was what brought me to be a retail pro. So that's for owners and managers. For on the floor salespeople, we have something called the Retail Sales Academy. And that's where I teach frontline employees how to sell customer focused selling on the floor. And so, it's not uncommon for somebody who puts their people through and keeps them on to see a 15 or a 20% lift in the average
Oh,
ticket. And,
wow.
so it's just this great investment. We have the Retail Success Summit every year, as you mentioned. We've been doing that for 18 times now. But then the real exciting thing is Retail Brilliance. We call it Brilliance for short. If you go to retailbrilliance.com, what we saw was that there was a need for, I mean, we offer a lot of really high quality information, but we're not experts in e-commerce. We're not experts in how do you buy an insurance policy. We're not experts in how do you manage a family run business. So there's all of these skills and all of this wisdom and information that an independent retailer needs but doesn't know where to get them. So that's what brilliance is all about. The vision for brilliance is all of your retail training all in one place. and the vision is being realized. So we're really, really excited about that. I'd encourage anybody to go and sign up, look at the courses. There's over 30 courses on it already. And so that's the next thing for us.
And I mean, you're bringing other experts in the field that they're creating
Absolutely.
courses, and so yeah, really it can be a one place of so much training and so much information for retailers across the country in different fields, and I love the Brilliance platform.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Bob, thank you so much for being on. Any kind of parting words for the audience?
Yeah, you know what I would like to say to anybody who is listening is that this is in my opinion, and yes, we have all the wonkiness of tariffs and, I mean, but wonkiness comes and goes,
Yep.
right? I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I've been through recessions and COVID, and, and this too will pass. But this is, in my opinion, the very, very best time to be an independent brick and mortar retailer, for the reasons that we've talked about. If you stay really focused on being a really, really great retailer who serves their customers with this heart of service and, shows up as your best self, gives your customers a really human experience, I think that the future is so incredibly bright. So if any of your listeners, when they're listening to this, are feeling, stressed or uncertain, I just want to, just share, just stay with it. Keep growing one step at a time. Just make progress. Enjoy the journey. You don't have to do this. You get to do this. You signed up for this. So have some fun with this. That would be my advice. I mean, this is retail, baby. If you're not
Yep.
having fun, you shouldn't do it. I used to
Exactly.
say, I used to say that when you cross the lease line, your problems from the outside world were gone. Then your job is to share some love on the floor. And if you do that, if you have that attitude, you're going to have at least 8 great hours every single day.
If you're not having fun, what are you doing, right?
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Well, Bob, thank you so much for being on today. Thank you so much for everything that you do for retailers and helping
You're
retailers improve
welcome.
their business and grow. Again, I'm so incredibly appreciative of the work that you do, and I'm a huge fan. So
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Patrick. And I'm honored to be here.
thank you. Again, that was Bob Negen of Whizbang Retail Training, one of the legends of the industry. Whether you are a retailer, a wholesaler, or a nonprofit leader, we're all wanting the same thing. We're wanting to grow our business. We're wanting to be successful. We're wanting to make an impact on the world around us. And Bob Negen is the epitome of that. He has made such an impact. He's grown multiple businesses. He is a wonderful person to learn from, to gain insights from, and I was so privileged to be able to have the chance to sit down and talk with him. I hope you enjoyed this very special episode. We'll look forward to having more interviews in the future with other leaders of the industry, other retailers. If you would like to be featured on our podcast, please reach out. You can email me at contact@heartonmainstreet.org. I would love to have you as a guest on our show. But that is all for this week, so stay safe, shop local, and keep your heart on Main Street. This episode is written, produced, researched, and edited by me, Patrick Keiser, with a very special thank you to Bob Negen for being our guest today. For more information about Heart on Main Street, you can visit www.heartonmainstreet.org. Thanks.